You know that feeling when you're staring at a job application, especially like for a government role, and it feels like there's a secret language you just don't speak?
Mm.
It's not just about listing your skills anymore, is it?
No, not at
It's
all.
almost like there's this hidden code, right? And if you don't crack it, your carefully crafted resume might just get lost, just vanish into a sea of applicants never seeing the light of day.
Yeah, it's a common frustration.
It really is. And for many, it feels like a barrier,
Yeah.
a barrier to a really fulfilling career in public service. So today, we're taking a deep dive into mastering that secret language, specifically how to transform your resume, turn it into an incredibly powerful tool for landing your next role in the public sector.
Right.
We're going to unpack why government hiring is fundamentally different from what you might be used to in the private world, and precisely what you need to do to not just stand out, but to really speak directly to their unique priorities, to those deeply ingrained values of government recruiters.
And our insights today, they come from a really timely piece, The Art of Job Seeking, How to Tailor Your Resume for Government Roles. It was just published by CV Writers Australia this month, June 24, 2025.
Oh, okay. Very current then.
Very. And what's fascinating about this guide is how practical it is. It's clearly aimed at a specific audience, professionals who might already be, deeply embedded in public service or similar fields.
Like who specifically?
Well, people like dedicated teachers, skilled nurses, those already in various administrative or specialized public service roles. It covers a really wide spectrum of positions too.
So not just one level.
No, definitely not. It goes from, say, entry-level, APS-level administrative jobs, that's the Australian public service classification, all the way up to specialized public health roles or teaching posts in government schools. It's really designed to give you that actionable competitive edge
Okay.
because it recognizes that the public sector isn't just another employer, it operates differently.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to equip you with the exact strategies, the things you need to make your resume do more than just, tick boxes. It needs to align perfectly with those explicit selection criteria. It needs to reflect core public sector values and demonstrably showcase measurable outcomes.
That's the key, measurable.
Exactly. So if you're ready to gain that competitive advantage and truly understand the nuances of this specific, often kind of opaque hiring landscape, let's unpack this. Hashtag understanding the government mindset in hiring. So right off the bat, our source highlights a key distinction. Government hiring just isn't like the private sector.
Not at all.
For many of us, I think the default assumption is that a good resume is, well, universally good. But apparently that's not the case when it comes to public service. What's the core difference? What do we need to understand to even begin tailoring our approach effectively?
Well, what's truly fascinating here, and what often catches applicants off guard, is the heavy emphasis on three core principles. These really set government hiring apart.
Okay, what are they?
They're merit-based selection, accountability, and a strong alignment with agency values.
Merit, accountability, values.
Yeah. Unlike many private sector roles where, maybe speed of hire or sometimes more nebulous cultural fit might overshadow raw qualifications, government positions are just deeply rooted in transparency, in ensuring the best candidate for the job is chosen based strictly on their merits.
So it's really objective, or trying to be.
Exactly. It's trying to be. It's not just a guideline. It's often a legal or procedural requirement. It's designed to uphold public trust. If you think about it, right? Every government hire has to be demonstrably fair and justifiable to the taxpayer.
That makes sense.
So your resume, it effectively becomes this auditable document. It's proving you're not just a good candidate, but the most meritorious one, chosen through an objective process. And that's why every single word demonstrating your fit is scrutinized so heavily. And then beyond merit, there's this pervasive need for accountability. Every action, every decision, especially in a public service context, is ultimately accountable to the public.
Right.
So candidates aren't just assessed on what they can do, but critically, how well they embody the ethos of public service itself.
The how as much as the what.
Precisely. This means demonstrating values like integrity, respect, and a genuine commitment to service are just paramount. It's about showing you understand that your work, no matter how small it might seem, contributes to the wider public good.
So, okay, it's not just a list of experiences you've gathered over the years. It's about how those experiences explicitly demonstrate you're a good fit for their very specific culture, their operational principles, and crucially, those underlying values.
Exactly.
It's like they're looking for more than just a skilled worker. They're looking for a public servant in the, truest sense of the word. How do you even begin to show that on paper? That feels tough.
It is tough, but it's doable. And the source makes this incredibly clear. Applications are assessed not just on your raw experience or a generic skill set list, but crucially on how well you demonstrate key competencies.
Okay, competencies like what?
Well, the article specifically calls out areas like stakeholder engagement, continuous improvement, and compliance. Think about the government context, right? You're often dealing with really diverse groups.
Yeah.
Community members, other government agencies, maybe industry bodies. You're navigating complex regulations, and you're constantly trying to optimize public services with, let's face it, finite resources.
Always.
So a hiring manager isn't just looking for someone who says they have these skills. They want to see concrete evidence, proof that you've acquired them successfully in real-world scenarios, especially scenarios that align with public sector priorities. Your resume, then, becomes the first and arguably the most critical opportunity to show that you not only possess these skills, but also that you deeply understand and embody these deeper expectations, these principles that really define public service. It's about illustrating that you're not just competent, but that you are a genuine asset to the public sector environment. You understand its unique challenges, its responsibilities, and this really requires a shift in how you view your own experience and definitely how you articulate it.
That distinction really highlights the need for a fundamental shift in perspective. And the source goes on to say that your resume must speak the language of government recruitment. That's such a powerful phrase.
It is.
What does that actually mean in practical terms for someone trying to get noticed amidst potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of applications? How do you speak that language effectively?
This is such a crucial point. It really can make or break an application. And it means shifting your entire narrative. It's not about simply listing past tasks you've performed, like you might elsewhere.
Right.
It's about showcasing your profound understanding of your responsibilities within a broader public sector context.
Okay, give me an example.
Okay, sure. Let's consider a common private sector achievement, something like process invoices efficiently. Now, that's accurate, sure, but it doesn't resonate as strongly in government.
Right, lacks the why.
Exactly. In the public sector, you might reframe that same task to something like manage financial compliance for public funds, ensuring adherence to strict budgetary guidelines and audit requirements.
Yeah.
See the difference?
Wow, yeah, huge difference.
It immediately links your task to core government values: accountability, fiscal responsibility, compliance. It's demonstrating not just that you delivered results, but how those results inherently reflect and uphold the values of public service. And this language, it isn't just about using specific buzzwords, although, those can be important sometimes. It's more about framing your entire career narrative through a public service lens.
Yeah.
This means highlighting instances where you've contributed to the public good, where you've ensured regulatory compliance, engaged with diverse community stakeholders, or improved efficiency in a way that directly benefits citizens or optimizes public resources. The article really emphasizes that this resume is the first critical filter. It's the gatekeeper. Often, well before a cover letter is even looked at in that initial screening process.
Really? Before the cover letter?
Often.
Yes.
For that first cut. So if your resume doesn't immediately convey that you speak this language, your application might not even make it to the next stage. It has to be instantly recognizable as a government-ready document, built to withstand the scrutiny of a merit-based system.
Okay, so we've established the mindset shift needed. That's clear. Now, let's talk about the practical strategies. The source moves from this idea of doing the job to winning the job with specific resume tactics. The first one mentioned is mapping to the selection criteria. This sounds pretty direct, like directly addressing what they're asking for, almost like a checklist. How specific does this need to be on your actual resume?
This raises a really important question that, frankly, a lot of applicants struggle with. How do you actually prove you have capabilities like, say, communication or problem solving or maybe policy development just on a resume?
Yeah, it's easy to just list them.
Exactly. It's one thing to list them under a skills section, but the source really emphasizes that your resume needs to include direct, concrete examples of how you've demonstrated these capabilities in your past roles. You can't just state you have excellent communication skills. You have to illustrate it. Show a specific action you took and the positive outcome that resulted, clearly linking it back to the capability they're actually looking for.
So digging into your experience.
Absolutely. It requires you to really dissect the job description and the selection criteria, then meticulously review your own career for those moments, those projects, those achievements that directly align with those requirements. It's about providing concrete, undeniable evidence, not just, abstract assertions.
That's a fantastic point. It's the classic show, don't tell. So can you give us a concrete example? How might that look on a resume bullet point? Something that really nails this mapping concept, maybe for different levels of experience.
Certainly. And the article provides a really powerful illustration that encapsulates this perfectly. Instead of a generic statement like, assisted with policy.
Yeah, vague.
Very vague. The source suggests something much stronger, like prepared policy briefs leading to updated risk protocols across 3 regional health sites.
Okay, let's break that down.
Right. If you unpack that, it clearly maps to several key government capabilities. Firstly, policy development, that's obvious, but it also demonstrates problem solving because you're addressing a need for updated protocols. It shows communication through the preparation of briefs. And it even implies stakeholder engagement because you're coordinating across multiple sites. And all of this is done within a highly relevant public sector context, regional health sites. So this kind of statement doesn't just say you understand the criterion. It shows you have effectively applied it in a way that generated a tangible, positive change. Let's maybe consider another example for someone perhaps at an earlier stage in their career. Instead of just saying answered phone calls, which is just a task,
Right.
a better mapping to a client service, or maybe communication criteria might be something like resolved complex public inquiries by interpreting intricate government regulations, resulting in a 90% first call resolution rate for citizen queries.
Wow, okay, that's specific.
See, it shows problem solving, it shows compliance knowledge, and it gives a measurable positive outcome for citizens. This level of detail and specificity is absolutely crucial for passing that initial screening, because these criteria are often explicitly what hiring managers and often those automated applicant tracking systems are looking for and measuring against.
Like the ATS systems.
Exactly. They are the core of the evaluation, and your resume must directly reflect them to be considered competitive. The common pitfall here is just listing skills or duties without linking them to specific demonstrable instances of application. You've got to connect the dots for them.
That example really drives the point home. It's not just what you did, but the impact and how it connects directly to their needs. Okay, moving on. The next strategy is quantify your achievements. This sounds like putting numbers to your impact. I think a lot of people try to do this in private sector resumes too.
They do.
But why is this so vitally important for government roles specifically? How does it maybe differ from the private sector's use of quantification?
This is where your resume moves from being merely descriptive to being undeniably demonstrative. The source strongly advises replacing vague claims with concrete numbers, and this is particularly vital in government because of that inherent demand for accountability and measurable outcomes we talked about earlier.
Right, the accountability piece again.
It's exactly. Public services are often evaluated on their efficiency, their reach, their impact on the community, and often with public funds. So when you quantify your achievements, you provide undeniable evidence of your efficiency, your direct impact, and your overall success. It allows the hiring manager to see the tangible value you brought to your previous roles, rather than just having to infer it. Think of it from the government's perspective, right? Every dollar spent is public money. Every program impacts citizens. So when you quantify, you're not just showing efficiency, you're providing essentially auditable proof of responsible stewardship and demonstrable public benefit. For instance, in a resource-constrained environment, showing that you reduced something or improved something by a certain percentage immediately speaks volumes. It speaks to fiscal responsibility, operational effectiveness, a commitment to optimizing public resources, all critical public sector priorities. Okay? It's about showing, not just telling, the value you added.
Yeah.
And it provides that objective proof that just resonates really deeply within an accountable public system.
I can see how that's incredibly powerful. But what about for someone whose role might not have obvious metrics, like, say, a policy advisor or maybe a social worker? How do you quantify impact without it feeling, I don't know, forced or abstract? Are there soft ways to quantify or ways to connect it to broader impact? And maybe an example of how to make that happen for different roles.
That's an excellent question because you're right. Not every role has a neat numerical output readily available. The key is to think broadly about what quantifiable actually means in this context. It's not just about money saved or percentages achieved. It can also be about scale.
Yep.
How many people did you impact? How many projects did you manage? How many stakeholders did you engage with? Or frequency. How often did you do something significant? Did you reduce the frequency of a negative issue?
Time saving.
Absolutely. Time? Did you reduce processing time? Did you complete a project ahead of schedule? And also scope. What was the breadth of your responsibility? Managing a statewide program versus a local one, for example.
Yeah.
The source gives a really excellent contrast that perfectly illustrates this. Instead of the vague and, frankly, unmeasurable statement, supported student well-being, which tells a hiring manager very little about your actual impact.
Right. Means almost nothing.
Pretty much. It proposes something like, led a behavioral support program reducing incident reports by 35% in term 2. That tells the story.
Yeah, it does.
It's a clear action, led a behavioral support program. It has a specific area of focus behavioral support, and it has a precise, measurable result, reducing incident reports by 35% in term 2. That 35% reduction speaks volumes about your effectiveness, your ability to implement change, and the tangible positive impact you had on student welfare. It shows you're not just performing tasks, you're driving measurable improvements, which is highly valued in an environment focused on public outcomes and accountability. And for, say, a policy advisor, instead of drafted policy papers, you might say, offered 5 comprehensive policy recommendations that informed new legislative frameworks, impacting over 500,000 citizens in the region.
Ah, okay. Scale of impact.
Exactly. Here, the quantification is in the number of recommendations and the scale of impact. Or for a social worker, instead of just providing case management, you consider managed a caseload of 40 vulnerable families, resulting in a 20% increase in successful housing placements over 6 months, significantly improving client outcomes.
Getting tangible results.
Precisely. The common pitfall here is leaving your achievements abstract. Even if you don't have hard data readily available, you can often estimate reasonably or use comparative language like significantly reduced or substantially improved, though numbers are always stronger if you have them.
That makes a huge difference. You can almost see the hiring manager's eyes light up when they read that kind of specificity. Okay, so putting it all together, the final strategy combines these elements into action plus outcome statements. This feels like the ultimate power move for your resume bullet points, doesn't it? Giving them maximum impact. It really captures the essence of what a government recruiter is looking for.
It absolutely is. I think this framing tells a complete story of your contribution in a very concise and highly impactful way. You begin with the action you took, what you actually did, followed immediately by the specific positive outcome that resulted from that action, what you achieved.
Action then outcome.
Yeah.
Simple but effective.
Very. This structure clearly connects your efforts directly to tangible benefits, demonstrating your impact-driven approach. It's not just about listing duties or responsibilities, it's about showcasing your proactive contribution and the direct results of your work. This format is incredibly effective because it directly answers that "so what" question, right? The one that hiring managers are implicitly asking when they review any resume. They don't just want to know what you did, they want to know what difference it actually made, particularly in terms of public benefit or operational efficiency.
Could you walk us through a really strong example of the structure? One that captures the essence of action leading to a clear, beneficial outcome, especially for a public sector role, maybe illustrating how even a seemingly simple task can be elevated using this.
Sure. The article offers a perfect illustration that really brings this to life. Manage scheduling and rostering for a 247 aged care unit action, improving shift coverage by 15% within 3 months. Outcome.
Okay, let's break that one down too.
Right. So the action part, manage scheduling and rostering for a 247 aged care unit. That clearly defines a significant responsibility, especially given the continuous nature of a 247 operation and the critical importance of aged care. This already tells the recruiter about the complexity and responsibility involved.
Yeah, that's not a minor task.
Definitely not. Then the outcome is precise and measurable, improving shift coverage by 15% within 3 months. So this single statement showcases not just responsibility and operational management, but also effective problem solving, an ability to implement improvements, and a measurable positive change in efficiency and service delivery. For a public sector role, particularly in health services like aged care, improving shift coverage directly translates to better patient care, potentially reduced staff burnout, and improved operational efficiency, all highly, highly valued outcomes.
Critical outcomes.
Absolutely. It's concise, it's impactful, and it's directly relevant to the kind of challenges and successes that public sector organizations prioritize. This demonstrates a candidate who is not just capable, but also results-oriented and understands the downstream impact of their work. A common pitfall here is forgetting the outcome, right? Or making it too vague. You always need to ask yourself, so what? What was the result of my action? Hashtag, tag, tailored strategies for specific professions.
Those strategies make so much sense. It really is about being incredibly intentional with every single word on that resume. Now, the guide then breaks down specific advice for different professions, which is super helpful because, yeah, a nurse's resume certainly looks different from a teacher's.
Very different needs.
Let's start with teachers. What are the key elements teachers need to highlight on their government resume, especially if they're aiming for government school positions?
Okay, for teachers, the source emphasizes several critical elements that really go beyond just listing your teaching experience. First and foremost, you absolutely must include your NESA registration information or the equivalent state-specific teaching registration body.
Non-negotiable baseline.
Completely non-negotiable. It proves you're legally qualified to teach in Australia. Beyond that, it's vital to provide details about the specific student demographics you've worked with. Have you worked with students from diverse backgrounds? English language learners? Students with special needs? This tells a hiring panel about your versatility and experience, which is a common reality in government schools, serving a wide cross-section of the community.
Right. Shows adaptability.
Exactly. You should also highlight your familiarity with various syllabuses across different year levels or subjects. This demonstrates your breadth of knowledge and adaptability across different curriculum areas. And critically, the article stresses the importance of highlighting any well-being initiatives you've led. This isn't just about academic instruction anymore. It's showing your holistic approach to student welfare, which is a huge focus in public education.
Examples.
Yeah, like initiating a peer mentoring program, developing resources for mental health awareness, running anti-bullying campaigns, things like that. And, where applicable, definitely include any impressive HSC or NAPLAN results from your students. That provides concrete evidence of your instructional effectiveness and ability to achieve academic outcomes.
Hard data again.
And if you're applying through specific platforms like I Work for NSW or directly to local council schools, explicitly mention your behavior strategies, how you manage classroom dynamics, student conduct, and your community engagement efforts.
Like working with parents.
Yeah, liaising with parent groups, maybe local businesses for work experience or external support services. These demonstrate your comprehensive approach. Student welfare, classroom management, active involvement in the broader school community. All things highly valued by government education departments looking for well-rounded educators ready for the multifaceted demands of a public school environment.
That's incredibly detailed advice for teachers. It really shows how much they need to go beyond just curriculum delivery and encompass the whole student experience.
Okay, and for nurses looking at public health positions, what specific details will resonate most with government hiring managers? It feels like compliance and specific clinical experience would be huge here. Absolutely. For nurses, the focus shifts heavily towards clinical specifics and regulatory compliance. You absolutely must highlight your precise scope of practice. Don't just say registered nurse. Detail what areas of nursing you are qualified and experienced in. Is it acute care, mental health, community health, aged care? For instance, registered nurse with 5 years experience in emergency and critical care settings, managing complex trauma and acute medical cases.
New specific.
Very specific. And crucially, demonstrate your strict compliance with AHPRA standards. That's the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency. It's the national body ensuring patient safety and professional conduct. This is paramount everywhere in healthcare, but especially in public health, where regulatory adherence is just rigorously enforced and often audited.
Makes sense. Public trust.
Exactly. It's also vital to mention the specific types of shifts you've managed. For example, specifying experience in high-pressure environments like ICU or triage, or maybe specialized experience in palliative care or ED. This gives a much clearer picture of your capabilities under various conditions. Any participation in audits or contributions to policy or education initiatives within your previous roles should be prominently featured.
Why those specifically?
Because it signals engagement beyond routine clinical duties. It shows leadership potential, a commitment to systemic improvement. Maybe you led a ward audit for infection control or helped develop new patient safety protocols. That's valuable.
Okay.
And if you have public hospital experience, it's absolutely essential to emphasize your familiarity with specific systems like My Health Record or EMR systems, electronic medical records. These are crucial digital health systems in public hospitals. Demonstrating familiarity signals immediate operational readiness and significantly reduced training needs for the hiring organization.
So you can hit the ground running.
Precisely. That's a major benefit. for resource-conscious public health departments and a huge competitive advantage in a fast-paced public health environment.
That's very clear. It's about proving not just your nursing skills, but your readiness for the specific, complex operational environment of public health. Almost like showing you already speak their internal language and know their systems. Okay, finally, for those in broader administrative or general public service roles, this is such a vast category. What are the go-to specifics they should include to catch a government recruiter's eye? What are the common threads that apply across a range of, say, APS-level roles?
Yeah, it is a broad category. For these administrative and broader public service professionals, the emphasis is really on demonstrating your operational readiness and your understanding of government-specific procedures and systems. These professionals should definitely reference their experience with government-specific software. Well, the article explicitly names examples like TRIM, or Objective, which are common document and records management systems used across many departments, or SEP, which is a widely used enterprise resource planning software in government. Mentioning these immediately signals that you're familiar with the tools and platforms common in government departments, which again reduces the learning curve for your new role.
Less training needed. Big plus.
Huge plus. Also, highlight any experience with Freedom of Information, FOI requests. This is a unique and often quite complex area of government administration. It involves public access to government documents, and demonstrating experience here shows your understanding of public transparency and information management regulations. It's a specialized skill.
Okay.
Similarly, any extensive stakeholder consultations you've conducted are critical. Government work nearly always involves liaising with various internal departments, other agencies, community groups, the public. Proving your ability to navigate these complex relationships, manage expectations, and facilitate effective communication is highly, highly valued.
Makes sense. It's all about relationships often.
It really is. And finally, stress your proven ability to work effectively within established policy frameworks. Government operations are highly structured by policy and legislation. So demonstrating your capacity to understand, interpret, and apply these frameworks in your daily work is absolutely essential. These specifics, taken together, demonstrate your operational readiness, your understanding of government regulations, and your ability to thrive within the unique procedural landscape of the public sector. It paints a picture of a candidate who understands the rules of the game in government.
Right.
A common mistake here is using vague terms like proficient in office software instead of naming the specific government systems like TRIM or SAP. Specificity wins.
Okay, this next point is where it gets really interesting because it genuinely challenges a long-held belief for so many job seekers.
Yeah.
Our source makes a bold claim. The first cut in government hiring is made based on your resume, not your cover letter. This goes against what so many of us are taught about job applications, right? Where the cover letter is often seen as your big chance to make a personal pitch, to weave that compelling narrative.
Right, the story part.
Exactly. What's the thinking behind that, particularly for government roles? Why is the resume suddenly so paramount here?
This is indeed a critical insight and, like you said, often overlooked because it diverges so significantly from common private sector practices, where a really compelling, narrative-driven cover letter can often open doors.
Yeah.
But for most government roles, which frequently attract both internal and external applicants.
Internal too. Big factor.
Huge factor. The sheer volume of applications received can just be overwhelming.
Sure.
Imagine a single government job ad attracting hundreds, sometimes even thousands of applications. In that kind of high-volume environment, the resume acts as the primary, highly efficient screening tool. It has to be. It's designed to be quickly scanned and filtered by both human recruiters and increasingly by automated applicant tracking systems, the ATS.
Right. The robots?
Kind of, yeah. The cover letter, if it comes into play at all, often does so much later in the process, usually only after the initial sift has dramatically narrowed down the candidate pool to a much more manageable number.
So the resume has to do the heavy lifting up front.
Exactly. It means your resume must instantly convey your suitability without relying on the cover letter to provide context or personality. It has to stand completely on its own as a powerful, self-contained statement of your qualifications and your fit for that specific role. And this also reflects that structured, merit-based nature of government hiring we discussed. They need to quickly identify concrete evidence against specific criteria. And the resume, with its bullet points and structured information, is just better suited for that rapid assessment than a more narrative-driven letter. Recruiters are often looking for very specific keywords and experience points that match the job description and the agency's capability framework. If your resume doesn't immediately tick those boxes, it simply won't progress. It's a pragmatic approach, really, born out of necessity due to the sheer volume and that imperative for objective, auditable selection.
That makes a lot of sense, especially when you factor in the volume and the internal candidates. So if the resume is the ultimate gatekeeper, the first hurdle, what exactly does it need to show immediately to pass that critical first filter? What are those absolute key elements that, if they're missing or unclear, will likely lead to an immediate rejection, regardless of how strong your experience might actually be, even if you're a perfectly good candidate on paper?
Okay, to pass that critical first filter, your resume has to immediately demonstrate several key elements, and this is where the precision we've been talking about becomes absolutely paramount. Firstly, it really needs to show clear career progression. If you're in the public service already, that means showing progression across APS levels, for instance, or within other public institutions. Exactly. It signals not just experience, but growth, increasing responsibility, and a proven ability to operate at higher levels within that structured public service framework. If you're coming from the private sector, you need to effectively translate your roles into equivalent public service levels, or at least illustrate how your trajectory prepares you for such progression, focusing on the increasing complexity and scope of your responsibilities. Secondly, there must be undeniable consistency with the specific job description and the relevant capability framework. This is completely non-negotiable.
The frameworks again?
Yes. Government agencies rely heavily on standardized capability frameworks like the VPS in Victoria, the APS federally, or the QLD Gov capability and leadership frameworks in Queensland. These frameworks outline the specific skills, behaviors, and personal attributes required for roles at different levels. Your resume must clearly map your experience directly to these defined capabilities, echoing the language and examples from the framework itself.
So mirror their language.
Thoughtfully, yes. This is where those action plus outcome statements become so powerful. They directly demonstrate how you meet these defined capabilities. And thirdly, critically, keywords from the selection criteria must be echoed naturally throughout the document. Now, this isn't about keyword stuffing.
Right. Don't just list them randomly.
No, that's easily detectable and totally counterproductive. Instead, it's about thoughtfully, organically integrating those keywords and phrases into your action outcome statements and your descriptions of responsibilities. For instance, if a key criterion is stakeholder engagement, your relevant bullet point might begin: successfully engage diverse external stakeholders, including, see, it's natural.
Integrated, not tacked on.
Exactly. This natural integration helps with both human review, because the hiring manager sees exactly what they're looking for, and it helps with any applicant tracking systems, ETS, that might be used to pre-screen applications. These systems are programmed to scan for specific terms and phrases, and if your resume doesn't hit these marks immediately, it might not even get a human eye on it. This ensures your application gets through to that next crucial stage. It's about meeting their specific systematic requirements head-on, making sure your suitability is instantly apparent. The biggest mistake here, honestly, is submitting a generic resume that doesn't overtly address these specific government requirements. #outro.
Wow, okay. So to quickly recap our deep dive today, we've learned that securing a government role demands a resume that goes far, far beyond just a basic task listing.
Way beyond.
It's really about speaking the specific language of public sector recruitment, demonstrating a deep alignment with those core values like merit and accountability, and crucially, proving your impact through quantified achievements and those clear action outcome statements. We also explored the tailored specifics that make a crucial difference for teachers, nurses, and administrative professionals, highlighting the unique details that really resonate with government hiring managers. And perhaps most importantly, we underscored that your resume is the critical first filter. It's the document that gets you in the door, often before your cover letter is even considered.
That's the big one to remember.
It really is. This means every word counts, every example must be precise, and every statement needs to be framed within that specific public service mindset.
And what's truly fascinating here, I think, and what the source articulates as a really profound shift in perspective, is that it's not just about showing you can do the job in a general sense. It's about showcasing that you've actually mastered the unique complexities of working within government.
The complexity. Right.
Yeah, and that you are demonstrably ready to take that next step, whether that's a lateral move into a new area or a significant promotion. This kind of tailored resume, it isn't just a suggestion for a slight advantage. The article really frames it as your competitive advantage, almost a necessity in such a highly structured and values-driven hiring environment.
Makes sense.
So as you, our listener, reflect on your own career path, maybe think about this.
Mhm.
How might reframing your experiences for this specific public sector context unlock opportunities you hadn't previously considered? What specific complexities of government work, maybe in accountability, stakeholder engagement, navigating policy adherence, have you already mastered, even if you haven't explicitly labeled them as such on your current resume?
Hmm.
Thinking about these things in the language that government recruiters understand and value most might just reveal strengths you already possess, just waiting to be articulated properly for your next big opportunity.